Which brawlers take the most amount of skill to play in Brawl Stars? Or for that matter, the least amount of skill? That's what we're going to talk about today. We got a skill cap brawler ranking for you all. Let's do it. Alright, we're going to put each brawler into 3 categories, either low skill cap, medium skill cap, or high skill cap, and then of course rank it 1 to 24. And also, this is kind of obvious, but I just want to say how well a brawler can auto aim is going to have a heavy impact on what sort of skill cap and ranking they're going to have. Also, I just want to let you know about the formation of what I call the Coach Cory Pro Squad, which is 9 pro players in Brawl Stars. Over half of these guys actually signed pro contracts. Average trophy high of over 16,000 trophies. These guys are going to be helping me out with any ranking guides and any really high level strategy stuff, and definitely follow these guys. I got links to follow them in the description down below. If you like following top pro players for Brawl Stars, definitely check them out. A lot of them stream on Twitch or have YouTube series videos. Definitely check them out. Also, for this ranking, I tried not to think too hard about how strong or weak a brawler was, because I want this ranking to go beyond whatever meta we're in. Although, if a brawler is really weak at the time, of course it's going to be harder to play, so sort of have a higher skill cap, and vice versa the other way around. Alright, starting out with the lowest skill cap brawler in the game, in my opinion, it's gotta be Shelly. I mean, Shelly, she's a pretty simple brawler, right? Close range shotgun brawler. There's not that much about her that's difficult. You can auto aim with her really easily. She's not a great peek shot brawler, so manually aiming isn't that important. There are a couple times where manual aiming is gonna get you a better advantage than auto aiming, but it's probably the least amount, I feel like, compared to most brawlers, and her super is the same thing essentially as her regular attack. Maybe the high skill cap part of her is she has a normal move speed and is a close range brawler, and she doesn't have the health of tanks, so she has to get close, and she doesn't have those things going for her. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. At 23, it's gonna be Bull. Bull, look, obviously aiming with Bull is really easy. Of course, he has a really short range. You're just gonna auto aim most of the time, and you're gonna find really good success. Only if someone's ducking around a corner are you maybe thinking about manually aiming. The other skill cap parts of Bull is gonna be using his super, right? That's definitely the most difficult part, is trying to get that done correctly, and maybe using a heist, for instance, and otherwise just juking people to get close enough to them. That's the skill cap part of Bull. But again, that's pretty much it. And at 22, it's going to be El Primo. And really similar story with El Primo. The only other thing I would say is El Primo as a ball carrier definitely requires some skill. And there's a little bit of that can sort of definitely take some practice and experience to figure out the best ways to be a ball carrier as an El Primo. But outside of that, that's definitely the highest skill cap part of El Primo. At 21, it's going to be Frank. Yes, you're going to notice a lot of close-range brawlers. Of course, you're going to be low in the ranking because auto-aim with them is pretty good. Frank, decent auto-aim brawler, but in general, really easy to aim manually as well. And in general, the highest skill cap part of Frank is just timing your shots. And even then, you can sort of spam your shots because he has such a fast reload, so it's not that big of a deal. But in my opinion, Frank, not that high of a skill cap. At 20, it's going to be Daryl. Yeah, I know. You're seeing a pattern here. Daryl really easy with auto aim. There is a little bit more with Daryl because he has 2 shotguns, so you can maybe strafe to one side or the other to get the correct or the most amount of damage. And of course, those rolls can definitely have you probably want to manually aim most of those rolls, unless a couple situations. But otherwise with Daryl, there's not that much that's like crazy high skill cap. 19 is going to be Nita. Now Nita, you can definitely auto aim with. Nita is a really good brawler at peek shotting, which is going around corners and shooting, ducking in and out and getting those shots, and that's not a time for auto aim, and that does take a little bit of skill, but in general, Nita's a pretty easy brawler to use. There's not much about Nita that is really high skill cap, I think, so she's going to be pretty low in my rankings. At 18, it's going to be Pam. Again, Pam, similar story. There's not that much about Pam that's really that tricky. Yeah, once you fire her shot, you're locked in that pattern for a long time, but in general, it's a wide spray. It's hard to completely miss a lot of times, and the only other part is figuring out where to place her turret, right? You got to know where to place her turret, but in general, you don't even have to memorize the maps, memorize locations for each map, because all you got to know, look, you want to place it behind a wall a lot of times. You don't want to place it in a spot that's going to get it easily killed, and that's not that hard to think of on the spot. At 17, and what I'm saying is the last brawler that's low skill cap, it's going to be Poco. Now, Poco, honestly, one of the easiest brawlers to manually aim, although positioning does matter a lot with Poco because you want to be able to hit multiple people. So where you are in the map matters a lot. But the thing that's higher skill cap about Poco is his heal. That can definitely be a little bit tricky to time that, you know, waiting for your teammates to get low enough for it to get the highest value, but making sure you're not too late and missing the heal completely. I think we all have seen a lot of missed Poco heals. So that's definitely the hardest part about Poco, and I think why he's above all these other guys below him, even though he's kind of easy to aim. All right, now we're into the medium skill cap category, and these are the brawlers that I think still have some easy stuff about them for sure, but they also have some stuff that are maybe a little bit more tricky. Okay, and at 16, it's going to be Crow. Now, the reason I think Crow is a little bit higher skill cap, of course, he's not that strong right now, but also just because he's a very, very low health brawler, sort of medium range, and he's a chip shot brawler. So really low health brawler that is only a chip shot brawler can make him a little bit difficult because you gotta be in range of the enemy for a long time for the majority of your fight. So that can be a little bit tricky. Of course, too, you can auto aim to a decent success with Crow, not all the time. And you can auto aim his super sometimes, but you also definitely want to manually aim his super a lot to get the most amount of value out of it. So I definitely think there's a little bit of parts of Crow that are maybe a little higher skill cap, but he's not that high either. At 15, it's going to be Leon. Now, Leon in some parts is low skill cap, and sometimes he's definitely higher, right? As a close range brawler, when you're in close range, you can auto aim with a pretty good success. But at the same time, his shot has a distinct pattern to it, really similar to bow. So if you're not like point blank with someone, auto aiming is not going to get you the best result the majority of the time. You can have decent success with auto aim, but it's not going to be the best thing, and that's where he's a little bit higher skill cap. On top of that, using his super correctly definitely takes a little bit of skill, not that much, maybe just at least finding yourself in the grass, being a little bit of sneaky, and not just completely going Rambo as you sometimes see people do. But that's sort of why I think he's medium skill cap. At 14, it's going to be Penny. Now with Penny, definitely shooting is really the only somewhat difficult part with Penny, right? That's really it. Her shot is a little bit slow, so it's not the best with auto aim. The only time you really ever want to auto aim with Penny is very close range, and if someone's walking straight forwards or straight backwards, which is true with a lot of brawlers. So outside of that, you definitely do have to manually aim Penny, or its best results manually aiming. Otherwise, though, her cannon is honestly the best part of Penny, and obviously there's no skill cap with her cannon. It does everything for you. All you gotta do is throw it down. So you could argue for Penny to be lower skill cap, and you know what? I'd be okay with it because really it's her cannon that's the best part of her. But you got to do the shooting at least, right? 13, it's going to be Jessie. Jessie, pretty similar story, although it matters a little bit more how you're using her turret. You can't just throw it down in the back like you can with Penny's cannon, and it's just going to go to town. Jessie's turret, you definitely have to be a little bit more strategic about how you're placing it, whether you're using her star power with it or not, and of course just aiming her normal attack. As I said with Penny, I mean, Jessie's shot goes the same speed as Penny's, so it's the same amount of skill in my opinion. At 12 and in the medium skill cap, it's going to be Tara. Tara definitely, I think, has some higher skill cap parts. You do a lot of times end up playing her in somewhat close range, so you can have decent success auto-aiming with her. But you definitely also want to be careful about using your shots. Her super sometimes takes a long time to charge, so you have to be careful about using her super, because if you miss, that's a really big deal with Tara, and it's not easy to always get the best supers with her. Of course, you want to pull in multiple people. Sometimes you're not always able to get everything to happen the way you want with Tara. And in general, she is a close-ish range brawler, but she doesn't have the highest amount of health. She probably has the lowest amount of health besides Leon for a close-range brawler, but Leon also does more damage in close range than Tara does. So I think Tara has a little bit more trickiness to playing her the correct way at the high skill level. At 11, it's going to be Jean. Definitely the trickiest part about playing Jean is his super, right? It's not a quick charging super, and it's not entirely easy to hit either. It's a very long range super. Probably you are using it from long range, and if the target is moving, you got to predict where they're going to go. So it's not entirely an easy super to consistently hit. Outside of that, his normal attack, it's hard to consistently get direct hits. It's really, really easy to just get the small chip damage, of course, since it's a really wide attack. longest range in general in the game for doing that sort of thing. So Gene, that part is easy. It's definitely his super that's the tricky part. And of course, too, just knowing your positioning and it being able to heal your allies with your star power, just a little bit of extra thought to go along with everything else you're doing. At 10, it's going to be Barley. Now, Barley is a control brawler, so there's some parts of him you definitely have to be very strategic about. You want to oftentimes save your shots, make sure you have enough shots to control where enemies are going to go. And if you're throwing at long range, you're not always going to hit it. And of course, too, Barley is not a brawler that you're ever really going to want to auto aim with. It's not a good auto aim brawler. You're going to be menu aiming pretty much every single shot, at least you should be. At 9, it's going to be Brock. Now, Brock's shots, not really that great with auto aim. Of course, you can auto aim in close range just like with anyone else, but outside of that, you probably want to manually aim all of his shots. Not the hardest shots to manually aim, but saving your ammo and making sure someone's going to walk into it and pushing people down lanes. Brock is really good at making enemies go away as he has the longest range. On top of that, his shots explode, so you can sort of shoot around corners pretty well with Brock, unlike a lot of other brawlers. His super, though, is also definitely a tricky part to aim. A lot of people miss his super a lot. You can auto aim it okay. It's definitely not going to be the best, though, if you are auto aiming. If you really have to predict a little bit where the enemy's going to go for using his super, and that can definitely take a bit of skill. At 8, what I'm saying is the last medium skill cap brawler, it's gotta be Carl. Carl, definitely some parts of him that are kind of easy, and other parts that are definitely more tricky, right? Of course, how you use walls is definitely a skill cap part, whether you're throwing it in general, doing the long throw or always trying to get those short throws, and of course just getting those hits. You know, just because you hit the wall isn't always going to be the best case scenario. And then 2, doing peek shots around the wall where you're throwing it and the enemy's hiding behind the wall, but you can still hit them because of how Carl's axe curves back and can go through walls on his return. So that can definitely add a little bit of trickiness to it. All right, now we're in the high skill cap brawlers, and these brawlers have distinct mechanics about them that are not easy to pick up and play at a high level, even if you are a somewhat experienced player. At number 7, it's going to be Piper. Now, Piper, she can auto aim if a target is just going forwards or backwards, just like a lot of other brawlers, right? Otherwise, though, there's a lot of parts of Piper that can be a little tricky. First of all, she has a really long reload speed, so not only do you have to consistently hit shots, but you have to make sure you have enough ammo to even get that kill. If you get that shot, but you don't have the ammo to get the next one, it doesn't really matter because they're just gonna get out of your range, get behind a wall, something like that. So that shot you hit, well, too bad, because it wasn't actually worth that much because you didn't have the ammo. So there's a lot of different parts from saving, having enough ammo with Piper, and then just consistently hitting shots, because you do have to be, you want to be at the longest range possible with Piper to get the most amount of damage. Of course, that also makes it harder to hit your shots the further away you are from someone. At number 6, it's going to be Spike. Spike, there's a lot of different things you can do with him. Of course, he's got his normal attack. A full hit with his normal attack, maybe not the hardest thing to do, but the exploding parts, now that they fire in a set pattern every single time, there is a definite high skill cap with that part, getting consistent hits with the exploding spikes on enemies that are running away. There's definitely, and doing it on purpose, right? Not just throwing it, hoping that you were lucky enough to get that hit, doing it on purpose and knowing that this is the angle I need to do to get a hit with the exploding spike. That definitely has some skill cap. His super, not that high of a skill cap thing. It's really just the exploding spike part that's gonna be the biggest. At number 5, it's going to be Mortis. Now, Mortis, maybe not as high skill cap as he used to be, because his highest skill cap mode was Brawl Ball as a ball carrier, and that took a really high amount of skill, maybe one of the highest in the game. Of course, he's no longer as good as a ball carrier, or nearly as good as he used to be. So that part of him, not quite as there anymore, but outside of that, he's still a somewhat difficult brawler to use as far as a brawler whose attack gets you closer to someone, but he also gets within really easy auto aim range of every single brawler for the most part. And as a close-ish range brawler, you know, he doesn't want to be dealing with tanks. There's a lot of different parts of using his ammo wisely as far as getting close to someone, but also making sure you can deal enough damage to get that kill, because they're going to be getting easy shots on you, so you have to make calculated moves with when you're using your attacks, getting closer to someone, further away, stuff like that, and even more. At number 4, it's going to be Rico. Rico, you got to learn the bounce angles for basically every single map if you want to be a master Rico. Not only do you just have to know, of course, you're going to bounce off walls, but having that angle memorized, you can just do it right away, is going to be a big difference in winning that first fight, because there's going to be someone pretty much always the same place every single time. As you get higher in trophies, a lot of times there's always one person in your lane, and you know there's only one or two usually places that they're going to be, so you want to fire down those angles as soon as possible. So knowing the angles with Rico definitely takes a bit of skill. And then of course just even knowing if you should be doing a bounce shot versus a full-on shot, no bounce. And of course he's not a brawler that you want to auto aim with the exception of someone being in really close. At 3, it's going to be Colt. Now, Colt is a brawler whose aiming is not the easiest thing to do to hit consistently. Of course, he can be a really high damage brawler, but only if you're consistently hitting his shots. And he's not a brawler that's that great with auto aim. He's okay with auto aim. You really want to be manually aiming all of his shots to get the best success with Colt. And you got to be careful on which direction you're strafing to, because that's going to have an impact on how many hits you're going to have with all your bullets. And then 2, just using his super correctly, making sure it is not the easy super to hit, very long range as well. And number 2, it's going to be Bo. Now, Bo has a couple high skill cap parts about him. His attack is definitely high skill cap, I think, because depending on whether you're strafing left or strafing right, it's going to act differently. So you have to know which direction do I need to be strafing to get the max amount of damage, to get the most amount of hits. And then 2, just general positioning. You don't just want to strafe away to get damage, you also got to be avoiding the enemy shots as well. Also 2, his mines have a definite skill cap as well. Yeah, throwing them, just putting them down is easy. Once you put them down, you're done. But when you put them down and where you put them down matters a lot. And just this general knowledge and strategy thing with putting his mines down, making sure that it's not going to be too easy for enemies to trip, or maybe trying to wait till they can't even see you put it down, or placing in high traffic areas, or protecting yourself. There's a lot of different ways you can use Bo's mines, and you definitely have to know the correct way for that situation. At number 1, the highest skill cap brawler in the game for me, it's gotta be Dynamite. Dynamite has a couple really high skill cap parts about it. First of all, just aiming his attack is not the easiest thing. You want to be conservative with your ammo, making sure you have enough shots to get consistent hits. You know, whether you're firing in close range or long range is going to have an impact on how wide the explosion radius of his attack is going to be. But of course, the highest skill cap part about Dynamite has got to be the Dyna jump. Whether you're doing single jumps, trying to go for a double jump, let alone a triple jump, and you can even go further than that technically, although it's probably not realistic in a real game outside of a friendly battle. But even still, just using his dynamite jump, getting the correct direction you want to go, and then maybe on top of that, after you jump, you have to attack someone, or maybe need to escape even more. There's a lot of parts. Those 2 things, just aiming and jumping with Dynamite, both high skill cap, I think. So he's got to be my high skill cap brawler in Brawl Stars. Check out more awesome brawler rankings right over there. That's going to be it for today's video, though. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you later.